February 28, 1983. It was a day that would be etched into the memory of St. Louis forever. St. Louis, Missouri shivered under a blanket of late winter chill. The city streets were quiet, the usual hustle and bustle muted by the cold. The air was thick with the dampness of melting snow. Each droplet seemed to carry with it a sense of foreboding, as if the city itself was aware of the dark secret it harbored. In an abandoned building on the 5600 block of Clemens Avenue, a horrifying discovery awaited. The building, once a place of life and activity, now stood as a silent witness to unspeakable horror. Two young boys, their laughter echoing in the cavernous space, stumbled upon a sight that would silence their joy forever. They had ventured into the building, seeking adventure, but what they found was far from the innocent fun they had imagined. A small body, lifeless and discarded, lay sprawled on the floor. The sight was so shocking, so out of place, that it took a moment for the boys to comprehend what they were seeing. The victim, a young black female, no more than 8 years old, had been decapitated. Her small frame, so vulnerable and innocent, was a stark contrast to the brutality inflicted upon her. Her remains, carefully wrapped in a trash bag, spoke of a calculated cruelty that chilled the city to its core. The methodical nature of the crime suggested a perpetrator who was both cold and meticulous. She had been violated in the most horrific way imaginable, her innocence stolen, her name unknown. The city was left to grapple with the horror of what had been done to one of its most vulnerable. She became known simply as Little Jane Doe. The community, in their grief and outrage, came together to mourn the loss of a child they had never known, but whose tragic fate had touched them all deeply. The police launched an intense investigation, combing through every piece of evidence, every lead, in a desperate attempt to find the monster responsible. Detectives worked around the clock, driven by a sense of duty and a desire for justice. The community held vigils, their candles flickering in the cold night air, a symbol of hope and remembrance. They prayed for justice, for answers, and for the soul of the little girl who had been taken from them so cruelly. The story dominated the headlines, the details of the crime sending shockwaves through the city and beyond. People read the news with a mix of horror and sadness, unable to comprehend how such evil could exist in their midst. Parents held their children a little tighter, the fear of the unknown casting a shadow over their everyday lives. Schools implemented new safety measures, and the community became more vigilant, determined to protect their children from harm. The memorial for Little Jane Doe grew, with flowers, toys, and notes left by strangers who felt a connection to the little girl. Each tribute was a testament to the impact her short life had on the community. A composite sketch of a potential suspect was released, and the police urged anyone with information to come forward. Tips poured in, but the case remained unsolved, the identity of Little Jane Doe and her killer a mystery. Years passed, and the case grew cold. Detectives continued to review the evidence, hoping for a breakthrough, but the answers remained elusive. Little Jane Doe's story became a haunting reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the most unexpected places. Today, St. Louis has changed in many ways, but the memory of Little Jane Doe remains. Her story is a part of the city's history, a tragic chapter that serves as a reminder of the importance of community, vigilance, and the relentless pursuit of justice. A memorial plaque now stands in her honor, a place where people can come to pay their respects and remember the little girl who was taken too soon. Her story, though tragic, has brought the community closer together, united in their determination to protect their children and seek justice for those who cannot speak for themselves. As the sun sets over St. Louis, the city reflects on its past and looks towards a future where such horrors are a thing of the past. Little Jane Doe may be gone, but she will never be forgotten. The crime scene was eerily pristine. No signs of a struggle, no forced entry, just a small body, left to be forgotten. The meticulous way in which she was found suggested a chilling possibility. This was not a crime of passion. This was the work of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The lack of defensive wounds on her little body hinted at something even more sinister. Had she known her attacker? Was she lulled into a false sense of security, only to be taken advantage of in the most horrific way? The questions hung heavy in the air, unanswered, echoing the silent screams of a child lost. Years turned into decades. The case grew cold. The once bustling police station, filled with the hum of activity and the clatter of typewriters, now stood silent. The old case files, yellowed with age, gathered dust in forgotten corners. The courthouse steps, which had seen countless trials and tribulations, were now bathed in the soft glow of the evening sun, a silent witness to the passage of time. St. Louis Little Jane Doe remained nameless, her identity a heart-wrenching mystery. The memorial, adorned with fresh flowers, stood as a poignant reminder of a life cut short. The empty playground at night, once filled with the laughter of children, now echoed with silence. Old photographs in black and white captured moments of joy and innocence, now overshadowed by the tragedy of her unknown fate. Then, in 2013, a flicker of hope. As the sun rose over the city, casting a golden hue over the skyline, a detective, driven by a relentless pursuit of justice, revisited the old files. The laboratory lights flickered on, signaling the dawn of a new era in forensic science. Advances in forensic technology allowed for the extraction of DNA from her remains. Gloved hands carefully handled the test tube, ensuring no contamination. The DNA sequencing machine, a marvel of modern science, whirred to life, decoding the genetic blueprint. A scientist in a lab coat with a look of determination meticulously worked to unlock the secrets held within the DNA. A glimmer of a chance to finally identify her, to give her back her name, to perhaps even find her killer. Her body was exhumed. The cemetery, shrouded in the early morning mist, bore witness to this solemn act. The graveyard at dawn, with its rows of headstones, stood as a testament to the countless lives and stories it held. The detective, holding old photographs, felt the weight of the responsibility to bring closure to this haunting mystery. A fresh wave of grief washed over the city, a stark reminder of the innocent life taken too soon. The aerial view of St. Louis, cloaked in rain, mirrored the collective sorrow of its residents. People with heavy hearts placed flowers at the memorial, their faces etched with pain. A somber crowd gathered, united in their grief and hope for justice. The DNA profile was entered into national databases. The computer screen displayed the intricate DNA profile, a unique identifier that held the key to her identity. A forensic scientist, with precision and care, entered the data into the system. The close-up of the DNA analysis revealed the complex patterns and sequences that made up her genetic code. The hope was that somewhere, someone was missing this little girl. A family, gathered around old photographs, reminisced about happier times. The empty swing set in the park, swaying gently in the breeze, symbolized the void left by her absence. A candlelight vigil, with flickering flames, illuminated the faces of those who refused to forget. Someone who had been clinging to hope for all these years. Close-ups of teary eyes reflected the deep emotional scars left by her disappearance. A person, holding an old photograph, whispered silent prayers for answers. The family, despite the years of uncertainty, looked hopeful, believing that one day they would finally know the truth. Section 4. A Digital Whisper, Reddit's Unsettling Connection. In 2023, a true crime forum on Reddit became an unexpected beacon of hope. This forum, often a place for armchair detectives and true crime enthusiasts to discuss cold cases, suddenly found itself at the center of a potential breakthrough. A user, struck by the similarities between the St. Louis Jane Doe case and the disappearance of a young girl from East St. Louis, Illinois in the early 80s, posted their observations. The timeline matched. The user meticulously detailed the events, drawing parallels that were hard to ignore. The victims' age and race were similar. Both were young African-American girls, and the resemblance between the two was uncanny. The user's post included side-by-side photographs, highlighting the striking similarities in their facial features. Could this be the break they had been waiting for? The online community buzzed with excitement and hope. For years, the St. Louis Jane Doe case had been a haunting mystery, a story that seemed to have no end. But now, there was a glimmer of hope. The post went viral, reigniting public interest in the case. People from all over the world began to share the post, adding their own theories and observations. The story spread like wildfire, reaching not just true crime enthusiasts, but also the general public. The St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department took notice. They had been working on the case for decades, but this new lead brought a renewed sense of urgency. Detectives began to re-examine old evidence, hoping to find something they might have missed. Could this online community, brought together by a shared desire for justice, hold the key to solving this decades-old mystery? The power of collective intelligence and the internet's ability to connect people from all walks of life had never been more evident. As the investigation continued, the world watched, hopeful that this digital whisper could finally bring closure to a case that had haunted so many for so long. The detectives pored over the new information, comparing it with their old files. They reached out to the user who had made the post, hoping to gather more details. The user, who had never expected their post to gain such traction, was more than willing to help. The online community continued to play a crucial role, with members organizing virtual meetings to discuss the case and share any new findings. The sense of camaraderie and shared purpose was palpable, as people from different backgrounds and locations came together with a common goal. News outlets picked up the story, bringing even more attention to the case. The renewed interest led to new tips and potential leads, as people who had long forgotten about the case were reminded of its importance. The police worked tirelessly, following up on every lead. The collaboration between the online community and law enforcement was unprecedented, showcasing the power of modern technology in solving old mysteries. As the investigation progressed, the hope for justice grew stronger. The St. Louis Jane Doe, who had been nameless for so long, was finally on the path to being identified. The community's efforts were not in vain, and the digital whisper that started on Reddit had become a roar for justice. This story is a testament to the power of community and the impact that even a single voice can have. In the digital age, connections can be made in the most unexpected places, and together, we can bring light to the darkest of mysteries. Section 5. A city remembers, a case reopens. The fight for Jane Doe. Fueled by the Reddit lead and a community's unwavering determination, the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department reopened the investigation. A fresh set of eyes pored over old evidence. Detectives chased down new leads, their efforts fueled by the knowledge that somewhere out there, someone held the missing pieces of this tragic puzzle. A renewed public appeal for information was launched. Flyers with Jane Doe's reconstructed image were circulated. The community rallied, united in their grief and their determination to give this little girl back her name, her story, her justice.